Hey there, how are you? I'm going live. This is the first time I've gone live on Facebook in a long time because Facebook just got boring, guys. I remember back in the day, Facebook was kind of cool. You connect to your friends from high school, connect to family, and then it just became like this fighting match between people. A friend of mine actually, he posted a meme today that I thought was funny. Like, remember back in the day when you didn't know what people were thinking, and then the internet came along, and now we know, and now we're all disgusted by what people think and what's going on in their minds. And it's exactly what happens, right? And even if you go into the fandoms, and anybody that knows me knows that I'm kind of a nerd. So I'm in the Star Trek fandoms and this fandom and that. And it's like, wow, people are nasty. Especially the Star Trek fans. You're all supposed to be the nice fans. But you're really nasty, real racist, real sexist, real homophobic, etc. So that's just, the world that we live in. So why am I here now? Why am I here now if I'm just ragging on Facebook? Because Facebook got a little bit lighter, especially after the acquisition of Twitter, and we saw the media landscape change, and people were a little bit more open about giving their opinions, etc., etc. So I started coming back in, but man, I quit on the political talk because people can't control themselves. People are emotional. People get all worked up over politics, which is fine. Politics is an emotional issue sometimes. So I totally respect that. But I also respect civil discourse. I respect that even more. In the last couple of weeks, I've been the victim of a lot of uncivil discourse. So I think it's about time for me to come on here since I've been posting more political stuff. I kind of cut myself off a little bit. What I wanted to say is that when I came back to Facebook, I've been posting like, what do you call, like animal videos and, funny videos and just BS, because it's like, wow, it's just toxic. Facebook, of all the social medias out there, is really, really toxic. So I kind of wanted to extricate myself from that. I don't want to be part of the toxicity that is online. So I kind of, measured it a little bit. But I love politics, guys. I've loved politics for a very long time. I love to talk about politics. And I would give myself a pat in the back because I'm kind of able to talk about politics from like up here and just be kind of as objective as possible about it and just see what people are thinking. Why do you feel that way? Why are you going this way and not that way? And especially when it's something that's like an outlier, like when I meet a black trans woman who happens to be a conservative, you're like, whoa, how did that happen? Like, that's interesting to me. Like, my first reaction isn't like, oh, you're an idiot, why are you? It's like, okay, what brought you to that? Okay, I think things like that are really interesting. And that's what I kind of want to talk about. I want to talk about me and how I think, especially because I've been posting more on Facebook. And of all the social media places where I'm at, I thought Facebook was the one that had like the least engagement. But sometimes they'll give me one of those little trackers and say, hey, you're doing great. You got 300 views on this post. You got 500 views on this post. Keep it up. And I'm like, really? Because there's not a lot of comments, not a lot of likes on these posts, but apparently somebody's reading them, and people will listen or disagree or agree with my opinion, and sometimes people get really heated. I'm like, oh shit, I guess I'm making a micro impact. And so if I'm doing this, I think it's important that you know exactly where I'm coming from, exactly where I stand on certain issues, because it's hot right now up in the States, in the world, right? It's hot. There's a lot of things going on, especially when it comes to the Epstein files. So we will talk about that. But I kind of want to contextualize everything, right? I wrote some notes here because I have so much stuff to say, so I'll try not to ramble, but I can't promise because there's so much to say on these topics. But I've been called out by two individuals the last 2 weeks, and they were both really disrespectful, disingenuous, kind of wicked, to be honest, in the way that they attacked me completely unprovoked. It was like, hey, how are you? And by the way, are you a sex trafficker because you haven't, said fuck you, Trump, enough or whatever, and we'll get into that. That, like, it just took me for a loop. And it sucks because these are people that maybe I don't consider them friends, but they were people that I've met personally. Well, one of them wasn't, but I've exchanged a lot of conversations with. I was even on this person's podcast, you know. She was somebody that I helped a lot, you know, who wanted to come to Brazil, and then she came to Brazil, got robbed. You know what? Now, fuck you, bitch. You know, I'm glad you got robbed down here. That means you won't come back. And then this other dude who I've known for a long time, I've always been nice to him, blah, blah, blah. And then he just came at me with these really vicious attacks. He even attacked my singing. And if you think I'm a bad singer, okay, I'm going to continue singing. I love music. So I really want to talk about them specifically, what they said, and like set the record straight if I need to, you know. That's the thing. You know, and I'm kind of coming to this realization, and shout out to Jordan Bishop, who's a friend of mine, who helped me open up a cultural space down here in Sao Paulo about 2 years ago, because he's always been on social media with his wife, and they make a lot of cool content, and I've always been like, damn, I wish I could do that. That's so cool, you know, but I've always been a bit shy about being in front of the camera just to talk. You know, I like to write. I think I'm a thespian, guys. I won the thespian award. When I was in high school, I got a scholarship for writing. I feel like if somebody put a gun to my head and said, hey, you need to do something that's going to engage 10,000 to 20,000 people, whether you post a video, whether you post a short, or you post a written document, I would say, hey, let me write an essay on something. I think I can do it. And just to go into the history of that, okay. Oh, I can invite a viewer. I don't want a viewer in my podcast. I had to get, you know, after opening the space with him, and he's like, yeah, we need to make some social media posts. Bring them on camera. What's up, Eddie? Oh, you're going to be mentioned in this little live here, Eddie. So hang on, brother. And actually, if you want to come on, just let me know, because you're a perfect example of what I'm about to get into. But Jordan kind of helped me realize that, hey, I'm kind of a miniature, you know, I'm not trying to blow myself up, public figure, to the point where, you know, like 6 years ago was the first time somebody came up on the street. I was in Vitória, like this city that is like 2 hours by plane. It's really far from where I live. And this guy was like, hey, are you Phil in Brazil? I was like, who? Oh yeah, I forgot I have a podcast. Phil, you know, that's me. Yeah, Brazil Expat Journal, you know. And when I had my blog, I used to blog a lot. I used to get at least 5,000, 10,000 readers of my blog. No money spent. Just, you know, people like to hear what I was saying. With my music, I'm on Instagram and TikTok. I post more about travel. I post more about music. Those videos, man, again, with no paid traffic, sometimes I'll put a little money behind it, but they have, you know, a certain level of engagement. Hello, Elida. That's my sister, y'all. Treat her nice. I love you, Elida. So I kind of had to stop and think to myself and go, yo, you have a talent for this. You have a talent for communicating, and enough people are listening where you have to kind of be responsible for what you say. I've always had that feeling, but now it's like extra. It's extra because I'm noticing like the people attacking me, right? And within the attacks, you know, one person actually said something that I agree with. It's like, hey, you write stuff, you need to make sure that what you're writing is correct, because these words can come back and haunt you. And I 100% agree with that. And I feel that I've always been like that. So I just want to, in this video, reiterate my opinions on certain things so you know clearly what I stand for and don't stand for, especially when it comes to everything going on right now with Trump, with Epstein, etc., etc. You know, so I think it's important. So even though it hurt me, you know, for like a millisecond, because these people are like insane. I can't get mad. I can't stay mad at crazy people. It did make me stop, you know, because in my life, I've had moments where more than one person said something about me, you know, that was negative, like a negative feedback. If more than one person says something, I kind of take a step back and say, hey, did they have a point? You know, maybe I am being arrogant. Maybe I am kind of being flippant. And I analyze it, and then I try to better it, you know. So I have no problem with people giving me negative feedback. That's okay. But it's got to come from a place of truth. You know, and this negative feedback that I got did not come from a place of truth. So tonight we're going to get into that. We're going to get into what does Phil really believe, because I see that apparently it's really important to some of you. I mean, little old me. Like it really affects people's lives, right? So I gotta contextualize it, guys. I gotta contextualize where I'm coming from politically before I can get into how I feel about everything else going on in the world. So we're gonna take the way back machine, way back machine, and when I, was a teenager in the U.S. and I was totally unconnected to politics. The thing that I love the most is Star Trek nerd stuff. I still talk about that stuff. In fact, I was talking about different social media stuff. Man, I post some reviews, some analysis of Star Trek on some Reddit pages. I got like 30,000 views on that stuff. People commenting. So my stuff is out there, a couple years ago, this guy named Ace Live came to Brazil when I was his tour guide. He posted that video on YouTube. It's got at least 300,000 views, so my voice is out there, and I think if you're even talking to one person face to face, you need to make sure that you're coming correct, right? Because you're giving them information, you're trying to help them somehow. Gotta make sure you're coming correct. I have potentially thousands, okay? I'm no Joe Rogan. I don't even want to be. Of course, I'm not trying to blow my head up, but I know I have a sufficient amount of followers where I think it's important to get this down. So back in the day, being the sci-fi fan that I was into unsolved mysteries and all that stuff. And eventually I found this show called Art Bell. Art Bell was this late night talk show host who would talk about Bigfoot, UFOs, Area 51, crop circles. But every once in a while he'd go deep on government stuff. Even though, that's kind of government conspiracy too, Area 51. But like some real stuff like, medical experiments that the U.S. government has done in its own people, false flag attacks, like down in Vietnam, in other places around the world where America did a false flag to get involved in war. And again, these things were conspiracy theories at one point. Now they've been proven that yes, these things have happened. When I got to university and we read, I think it's the white letters or the white papers, showing how America was completely playing both sides during the Vietnam War while thousands of their own citizens were crying or were dying. So right from 13, 14, 15, that early, my first impression of government is that I distrust it. I'm not a fan of authority. Never have been. I distrust authority, and I'm going to tell you a little story from 5th grade that's going to prove this in just a second. But that's the baseline for me. I distrust government, I distrust authority, and I more or less distrust people. I'm going to give you a little story right now that connects with Star Trek. I was in 5th grade, a big fan of Star Trek The Next Generation. And anybody who's a fan of Star Trek The Next Generation know that they have these little things called shuttlecrafts, which are like these little ships that go, into the big ships when they got to go down to the planet. And as a big fan of this show, in boarding class, I drew on a white little eraser, a little nacelle. Now, those that are not nerds, the nacelles are the little engines that make the ship go. So I drew a little nacelle here, a little oval, kind of oblong oval nacelle here, and I put one in the middle just to make my shuttlecraft a little bit cooler than the ones on the show. So now some kid ratted me out and said to the teacher that I was drawing penises on the eraser. And I had to go up to the teacher, I had to stand there, have her accuse me of doing this, and I didn't have, my sister's here, Elida, I don't even think she knows about this story, because I had to fight for myself, and I almost cried, telling her, I'm a Star Trek fan, this is a nacelle that I'm drawing, watch an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation, it's a really good show. So already from 5th grade, I had a distrust of authority, of what adults could do. And there have been plenty of studies that show that black kids are treated differently in school. When a black kid misbehaves, he gets worse punishment than if a white kid misbehaves. That's proven. And that goes straight through to the prison system, where it's proven. When a white person commits the same exact crime as a black person, the black person gets higher sentences, are treated differently in society. So not only did I learn about racism in 5th grade, although I didn't know that that's what it was at the time, I learned I had to defend myself, right? Against nutcases, that are saying that I'm drawing penises on a fucking eraser in 5th grade. right? And so that's the attitude that I had already. I come kind of a pugilistic attitude. I'm ready to fight at any time for the truth and for my integrity, because there's plenty of wicked people out there that will take both of those from you like that. And that continued into high school. So again, I'm not even getting into politics. I'm just letting you get into Phil's head. How does Phil think? So that's the first thing. I do not like authority. I do not trust the government. And that just extended, the X-Files came out a few years later, 93? I remember I watched the very first episode, so I was there from episode 1 on. Again, yeah, it's loony. It's talking about UFOs, although, is it that loony, right? Remember last year when Congress and everybody was saying, yeah, we can't explain these things in the sky, which should be a bigger story than it is? Remember that? So is it that loony? I don't know. You guys decide. But again, it's just that same through line, and then X-Files led me to, what's his name? William Cooper, Behold a Pale Horse, and then later on Zeitgeist, and later on Noam Chomsky, who, he's in the Epstein files. But I love his book and documentary Manufacturing Consent, which showed me how the media manipulates information, right? He talks a lot about the genocide in East Timor that was not covered by the news media, that was happening at the same time as the Vietnam War. But Vietnam was more important. I wonder why, right? So that's my teen years. That's my 90s. My 90s is being apolitical and fuck Clinton, fuck everybody. If he's having sex with Monica Lewinsky, I'm like, man, that's two adults doing whatever they're doing. I've changed my opinion on that. I see now how he used it, his power. There's a power dynamic there that shouldn't be going on. But on the surface level, yeah, dudes cheat on their wives, and Bill Clinton's a cheater, also on the Epstein list. Funny how a lot of these Democrats that are coming after me don't go so vehemently against Bill Clinton and the Clintons. But that's another story. So that's me, up into the 90s. And then something happens, and I actually got it here. Wait up. In 1996, my brother Diogenes, who I love, by the way, you can tell him that I love him, but I need my brother back. I don't need that person he's become back. If my brother comes back, I'm here. I love you. He took me to a Spike Lee movie called Get on the Bus, which I recommend everybody watches. And it's a movie about these black men who literally get on a bus to go to the Million Man March. And the story just follows them as they go to Washington to march. And what's cool is that everybody on the bus is different. You have more, people from the left that are more left than other left, the kind of middle ground people. But then he had the most interesting character, at least for me, because I had never seen anything like that before. It was a black gay Republican on this bus. And all credit goes to Spike Lee, who's a great writer. He didn't make him a buffoon. He didn't in the beginning, yeah, they're all coming at him, but he has one of the best monologues in the movie, and he just tears everybody on that bus a new asshole. And that just opened up my mind to, hey, not every black person is a Democrat, because that is the narrative, and that was certainly the narrative in the 90s. If anybody was alive at the time, they remember that Bill Clinton was the first black president. He played the saxophone on Arsenio Hall, and he was a cool dude, right? And this is just more proof that Democrats are for you, black people. But even at a young age, I'm like, all right, well, you talk a lot of talk, but I'm old enough that I remember, actually, let me get this boy's name, what's his name? Killed by police, because I can never pronounce his name correctly. Amadou Diallo, 1999, right? And I believe there's another case even before that of this guy was pulling, he's taking out his wallet in New York, and they shot this guy 41 times outside his home. And then there was a police stick plunger in a black man's anus, 1990s. I remember this stuff. Maybe some of you don't remember, but this was 1997 during the assault in a police precinct bathroom. Officer Justin Vogt sodomized Louima with broken wooden broomsticks. I remember this. And I'm like, you guys are all about, fixing the issues in the black community. I've seen rising gang violence. That's when West Coast, East Coast was like hot, Tupac gets assassinated, Notorious B.I.G. gets assassinated. So in my mind, I'm like, I'm not connecting here. Like, supposedly you guys are the ones that are supposed to be fixing all these issues in the black community, but these issues seem to be continuing. There seems to be this welfare state that keeps growing and growing and growing. Seems like a lot of people are not that happy with what's going on. So what is going on, right? And that's why I kind of turned apolitical, but I had that little seed planted in there by Spike Lee about, hey, there might be another vision. There might be another way to look at society, right? Does that mean I turned conservative? No. But it definitely it opened my eyes to, hey, there might be another route, which is interesting, right? So keep that in mind. So now we get to 2000 and we get to the election. Al Gore in what's his name? The war criminal. I'm glad I forgot his name. George W.H. Bush, right? And again, I was totally not a fan of either one of them, because by that time I started already to realize, because I got into Democracy Now! I was watching all the Occupy Wall Street stuff, and I'm like, yo, it's us versus them. It's not about left or, like, they're both two sides of the same coin, basically. It's us versus them, and I don't want to be part of any of that. In fact, the person that I supported during that election was a man named Ralph Nader from the Green Party. If I could go, I didn't vote that election, but if I could go back, I would 100% vote for him, even if that meant taking votes away from Al Gore and giving George W.H. Bush the win. So that was my dude. Green Party babies, and I voted Green Party down here in Brazil. And they're socialists, most of them, but better, in my mind, better than what the left and the right were giving us, which was just more war, more taxes, bigger government, more regulation, blah, 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 blah. That said, go back to Spike Lee, blah, 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 I kind of fell into like the speeches. George W. Bush talked about lower taxes, less government regulation. Like on paper, it looked good. It's like freedom, a little bit more freedom, blah, 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 blah. Except that you learn very quickly, especially after 9/11, but even on the lead up to that's all bullshit. And one hand washes the other. And behind closed doors, Democrats and Republicans are friendly, and they're just trying to hold on to their power and, just make a show for those of us out here in reality, right? So, I completely turned on George W. Bush like everybody rightfully did, because he lied to us. He lied to the world. He totally fucked up the Middle East. I mean, the Middle East has already had its issues, because of these big nations that are just coming in there and treating it like their playground and not respecting the people that have lived there for thousands of years. But it became 100% evident during the Bush administration, rightfully so. Okay, so again, you're starting to get this form of like, what's Phil's brain like? That's what's happening in my brain. I'm like, all of that stuff is sick and it's evil, and I'm not into it. And again, even before all this Epstein stuff, and I'll admit it, I have no shame in admitting it, I dabbled in some Alex Jones and some Bohemian Grove, where he would say these guys are having satanic rituals and blah blah blah. Now it makes me wonder how crazy Alex Jones really was. The thing is, these guys, Alex Jones, Bill Cooper, they were messed up too. So like it's like 60% of that stuff is BS, but that 30 to 40%, y'all, some of it, we're seeing it's coming to light that they weren't completely off the mark. And that's always been my stance. I'm like anti-government, anti-establishment. I want as much freedom as possible. That finally, I finally found a name for that when around, I think it was 1999, 2000. I'm a big talk radio fan, so I should go back to that. And again, thank you, my brother, Diogenes, because he got me into talk radio earlier. I used to listen to NPR like religiously for a very long time, and that's how I found Democracy Now!, talk radio, blah, blah, blah. And back then, talk radio was kind of cool. There used to be a show called Hannity and Combs. I'm sure you guys know who Sean Hannity is. Where's Combs? It was a cool show. Combs was a Democrat, Hannity was a Republican. They would talk about the issue, they would disagree, and then poof, that went away, right? Then it just became Sean Hannity on Fox News. So where am I getting to? It's getting there, and I'm gonna talk about these people that said some bullshit about me. I'm gonna talk about you. Don't worry. I'm gonna call out names. Helen, what's her name? Higgins, something like that, and Michael, and I forgot your last name, Michael, but both of you are assholes, basically. Michael Hall, that's his name. But Helen Higgins, something like that, is the other lady's name. I'm going to get to you. Okay? So, because you don't come at me the way that you came and don't think that there's going to be some recompense, okay? So, getting back into Phil's brain, because I think a lot of people are confused. Is Phil right wing? Is Phil left wing? If that matters to you, apparently it does, so let's be clear about my stances. I started listening to this late night show that came on right before Art Bell, because Art Bell was a late night show. It came on at like 2 a.m. in the morning, if I'm not mistaken, on the East Coast, and it would be on until like 6, which led right into Howard Stern. Oh no, we gotta go back. Howard Stern. Woo, we gotta go back. Sorry, guys. So those that don't know who Howard Stern is, because I do have an international audience. By the way, hello Marcos, hello Kate. Love you guys. And Marcos, man, I talk a lot of shit about Rio. This is the real guy, though. He's a real good dude. He's a thorough dude. I love Marcos. And hello, Kate. How are you? I'll be sending you music at some point. I promise I will. So Howard Stern was this guy on the radio. He had like, 18, 20 million listeners every week. Very popular across the United States, and his thing was like he just said whatever was on his mind, and some of that stuff was genuinely offensive. Yeah, Combs did die, right? Combs, but before he died, he was still active. I remember sometimes I would pick up WNBC. I think that's from Howard Stern, right? Or maybe it was WABC or something on the radio, on the AM radio, and his show would still be on. He was doing it solo, so they kind of like just left him behind a little bit. But Howard Stern was a guy that I fell in love with because he just said what was on his mind. Sometimes it would be trash, sometimes it wasn't. I kind of got his humor, when he had guys on from the KKK. We got it that he was making fun of them. He was just making them look stupid. And I appreciate, and I say this a lot, I appreciate when people are real with me, when you say, hey, you're a fucking nigger, I hate you. Thank you. I'd much rather, deal with a person like that or not deal with a person like that than somebody that is nice to me here, and then when I turn my back, that fucking nigger, man, that fucking faggot, I gotta deal with this guy. Much rather, so I like the honesty of Howard Stern. In fact, he lost that in the last few years, which is why I don't listen to him as much. But back in the day, that was a thing with Howard Stern. And by the way, just in case, people mention it, super creepy, that era when he was talking about the Olsen twins. I just posted something about Kid Rock and that. That was a freaky era, dude. I don't know. Anyway. Side issue. I'm talking about 15, 16, 17-year-old me. Obviously, I don't have the information that I have today about these people. But as far as what they're expressing, what is coming out of their mouth, I totally supported it in terms of just like, you have the right to say it. And if you don't like it, turn the dial. And I was very vocal about this to the point where when his book came out, Private Parts, I bought it and I said, hey, I bought this in the regular section at the mall. My 16-year-old self, however old I was, nobody questioned me. I didn't have to go to the adult section to buy it. So there should be no issue taking this book to school. Of course, I was doing it just to kind of test the waters. And I got a few weird looks, and I got a teacher that tried to tell me not to have the book, and I was like, yeah, but I bought this book normal, and I won that fight again, because I win fights, okay, when it comes to the truth. I just do, because the truth always wins. It's not about me. It's about the truth, okay, and having integrity. So I won that fight, and then I went extra, and then I wrote on my book bag. Back in the 90s, people loved to write little messages. I wrote, I am the king of all spics, on my book bag, just to get people's attention. Just be like, I'm using this derogatory term just to show you how stupid it is, how racist it is, but at the same time that the word spick is not going to hurt me. Call me a spick. It's not gonna hurt me. As I say, sticks and stones may hurt my bones, but words may never hurt me. And then and then the other one I wrote, "Sell your kids for drugs," which is actually a line from I think a Kurt Cobain song. I got in trouble for that. They made me erase this big thing. But I did it as kind of a protest of like, yo, we should be able to say whatever the fuck we want. And if people don't like it, they are free to remove themselves from our lives, change the station, turn the dial, or do something else with their lives. Right? If you don't, I remember the same thing with Jerry Springer at the time. You don't like Jerry Springer, then don't keep his ratings up. Don't watch the show. Don't watch the show. Protest it if you want, say it's horrible, have counter programming if you want, right? Like, look, at the same time as Jerry Springer, you can also watch Oprah. In fact, they were head to head, and at one point they actually beat Oprah, but for the most part, Oprah won that daytime battle. Counter programming. I'm into that. I'm into just people making choices about what comes into their mindscape themselves and not being told by somebody else, especially not the government and people in authority, what it is that we should think and we should say. Okay, and that gets into like George Orwell, all these things, which I think are damaging to society. So that's my stance. That's who I am. So then I meet Raleigh James. Actually, sorry, I didn't meet her. First, I called in because she was talking about gun violence, at the time. And she was very pro-gun. In my 17-year-old self, emotionally, I was very anti-gun because guns kill people. So I called in, like, no, we shouldn't have guns, blah, blah, blah. Man, I'm not going to be able to replay the whole conversation live on the air. #1 rated show in Philadelphia. She washed the floor with me. She mopped the floor with me, but she did it so respectfully and with facts that, again, it just like that movie by Spike Lee opened up my mind to like, wow, there's this whole other world out there. There's this whole other way of thinking out there that's not emotionally based. Maybe that comes from Star Trek, right? I love Mr. Spock, the logic side. That I ended up working for her. I would call in, and then one day she was like, yeah, my call screener / producer had to leave, blah, blah, blah. He got sick for some reason. Could you, open call for whoever wants to be my new call screener? I'm like, what? This is my dream job, guys. I love talk radio. I love podcasting. I love communication. You're telling me I can work on the radio on the #1 rated talk show in Philadelphia? I called up. I said, hey, I want to apply for that job. She's like, come on down. I got the job, and I was a producer for about a year or so. And it was wonderful. It was like the best thing. And I learned a lot from her, because she's coming from this different angle. But then what I noticed is that she was ragging on Bush too. She wasn't just ragging on the Democrats. She was destroying Bush. And she's the one that taught me that phrase, two sides of the same coin. And with her is what I also learned what a libertarian was. All right, so now it's getting hot, right? Now we're starting to get to the meat of it. And libertarians, for those that don't know, it's a political ideology, okay, that mostly believes in the power of the individual, less government, sometimes zero government. That's why, I don't like to label anything. I don't consider myself a libertarian, or I steal a phrase from Art Bell, which I later learned was also a libertarian. He says, I'm a libertarian with a little L, because there's stuff that comes out of the Libertarian Party that I'm like, what? What drugs did you guys take? I know you guys are for like free drugs for everybody, make every drug legal, but which one are you taking? Because some libertarian ideas are really out there, right? But the basis of the, hello Mateos, how are you? But the basis, and we'll get to Mateos and people like that in a second when we get to the future of what's going on with these comments people make. But I don't like these labels because sometimes these things get kind of crazy, but at least I identified with something. I said, okay, I get where they're coming from politically and ideologically, which is just this idea of live and let live. The Libertarian Party, if you go into their history, one of the first political parties in the U.S. to support gay marriage, support trans rights, support, all the stuff that conservatives are really against, which is why I couldn't get into the conservatives, by the way. I'm not a conservative because a lot of conservatives are coming from that moral right, that Ronald Reagan version of conservatism, which really started with him when he realized, hey, if I get all these Bible Belt motherfuckers to join me, I can start this whole new coalition of what the Republican Party is. If you go before Ronald Reagan, it's a different Republican Party completely. Even if you go as far back as Theodore Roosevelt, which some of it, plenty of his policies I agree with. And I think most modern Republicans would call him a Democrat or a progressive, right? So things change over time. But so libertarians, let me finish this thought about libertarians. So libertarians, they, the easy way to categorize them is like socially they're progressive, but fiscally they're conservative. And that's like the basic version of it. It kind of flies with what I believe. I definitely believe in less taxes if possible. Definitely believe in a smaller, leaner government if possible. I definitely believe, and that kind of comes from the conservative side, but they don't follow these things at all. I believe in less oversight, allowing businesses to be businesses and hire people and produce and get the economic engine running. But then on the other side is that whole idea of social progress as far as, but there are groups that we know within America that have historically been marginalized. Everybody needs to have a fair share. Everybody needs to be on equal ground to move forward, right? So this is what, 2000-ish? And pretty much that's it. Like that formed my, if I wanted to put a political label on what I believe, that is pretty much, where I solidified it. But even then, like I said, not 100% into the libertarianism. So moving forward, talking a lot today, right? But it's a lot to get to. Because I just have to begin understanding that there's people out there that listen to me and are gonna make comments towards me and will maybe represent me in the wrong way. So we're getting there, Miss Higgy and Mr. Hall. We're getting there, and others who have been assholes to me in the past. So this completely, after libertarianism, working with Raleigh James, I just became totally 100% disaffected with the government. And that includes not being a fan of Barack Obama because I just saw him as more establishment. And if you go down the line, he said he was going to close Guantanamo Bay. That alone is the one promise that pisses me off so much, because what happened during Bush's time when they were spying on American citizens, where they were tapping phones, where they were just arresting people that looked Muslim. I never faced racism in America for blackness, and that's Brazil. But definitely after 9/11, I would be asked, hey, are you Middle Eastern? Are you Egyptian? Are you this? And I noticed people were treating me a bit different. So that scared the shit out of me. I'll be honest with you, that scared the shit out of me, of just somebody calling and saying, hey, this guy looks weird. Hey, you're in Guantanamo listening to Britney Spears on a big speaker as a form of torture. Oh my God, oops, they did it again. So that scared me quite a bit. But so Obama for me was just a continuation of that. It was a continuation of the Afghan war, was a continuation of Iraq, although Iraq was coming to an end, so he kind of took credit for ending that. Okay, good, you killed Osama bin Laden. Good, gay people were able to get married in the Obama period. But overall, what I saw Obama as is exactly everything that I was against, which is really big government. This techno states, that's when we started to notice, Facebook becoming a little bit more rigid with its supposed censorship, and protection of people's feelings. I don't know. Anyway, right around Obama time. I'm not a huge fan of Obama at all as a politician. I don't know what he's like as a man. I don't know if he's in there in the Epstein things. My friend Justin just posted something nice that said, Obama knew. We don't know. I'm waiting for that information to come out, right? And that gets us to Trump. Oh my God. Trump, 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 Trump. Whew. Okay? So for those that forget history, okay, and even forget stuff that I post, on this Facebook page, because I post a lot. Around the time of Trump's first run in 2016, I was attacking this man every chance I got. I did not like the way that he introduced this whole build the wall, and they're saying us rapists and all that stuff, just kind of blanket statement about immigrants in general. He just nothing about Trump at that time interested me. I did like the idea of drain the swamp, because I do agree with that, and I saw that as a remnant of the Tea Party movement, which was about, let's get back to constitutionalism, let's try to shrink this US government, let's try not to get involved in a million wars all around the world, let's focus on Americans and make America great. So on the tiniest level, I was like, all right, I kind of get what Trump is going for. I just don't like him doing it. He's not eloquent. He's pugilistic. He's not bringing people together. And I get that, yes, the media had a lot to do with that, but just him as a person. So my guy in 2016, I was in Brazil already, so I didn't vote, was Gary Johnson, the Libertarian candidate, because I was against Hillary, and because Hillary's a war hawk, we know, and she's got a lot of dubious things in her life as far as assassinations. A lot of people die around the Clintons. So I didn't trust that bitch at all. And then you got Trump on the other side. I'm like, okay, between the two, at least, he's got a few points that I can kind of agree with as far as, yes, I do agree that there should be closed borders, and speaking of libertarians, there are libertarians that believe in open borders. There's those that believe in closed borders. I think it's pretty logical. If you want to have a country that's your home, it's just like my house. Like, the gate is locked. You're coming in if I let you in, and when you're in, you got to respect that this is my house. I'm a smoker. Here's my little cigarette right there. I'm trying to quit. But if I say, hey, you can only smoke outside in my house, you're only going to smoke outside in my house. That's the minimum respect that you can give to a country that you have entered, which I think is always weird, this double standard. Because on my podcast, I say all the time, if you come to Brazil, learn Portuguese. Aprende a falar português. You can learn with Marcos, in fact. He's a great teacher. Then why is it reversed when you come to the U.S.? Why wouldn't you respect the culture and the language of the United States if you're going to the United States? It seems kind of obvious. And this was never a controversial issue, to the point where you can go back and watch videos of Hillary Clinton saying this. Build the wall is actually a Hillary Clinton phrase from back in the 90s. Trump kind of stole that. Speaking of stealing, he stole that phrase, right? That wasn't a novel idea of we need to keep our borders safe because, yes, there's a lot of drugs coming through. There's a lot of bad people coming through. And, it's just the way he said it wasn't the best way, but he wasn't wrong. He was not wrong about that. So when he became president, if you look at my posts from back then, search 2016, you see I attacked this dude constantly. But, and this is the big but, okay? At the same time, I saw how the media was manipulating things that were coming out of his mouth to, give us a certain narrative of this is the most racist, most fascist, most evil guy. He's the next Hitler. He's going to be the next American dictator, and he's going to be in power for 50 years, and that's it. There's no more America after Trump. First off, I was like, really? There's a lot of checks and balances to get through before that happens. The 2016 Trump, I think the Democrats won most of the House, so it's not 2020, what is it? It's time flies, right? 2024 Trump, where, Trump won, but also the Republicans won, so he's got a lot more power to do everything that he wants to do. Oh, shit. 2016 Trump was uphill battle the whole time. But when did I become disenfranchised? I already wasn't a fan, but then when he was talking about all this drain the swamp and nothing happened nothing was drained. In fact, spending increased in a few areas, right? You are attacked, Eddie. Today is a free-for-all. You can feel attacked if you want. I love that even. So totally against the dude, but at the same time, I'm like, I wasn't going crazy with Trump because I noticed there's something weird going on here. Because how the hell was Trump just like 4 years, not even, actually there's a great video you should watch from The View. This was like 6 months before he ran for office, and Whoopi's hugging him and calling him my friend, and what's her name, Barbara Walters, everybody, Joy Behar, they're all like, oh, Trump, 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 and then boom, stuff like that freaks me out. I'm like, what's going on? Right? What is going on? Because 1 second he was like the most, he was everywhere black people were. Like he's winning awards for his work in the black community. Jesse Jackson was his best friend. In fact, I think he helped fund Jesse Jackson's campaign, if I'm not mistaken, for president in a Rainbow Coalition back in the day. Trump's always come off as more Democrat than Republican, even before, he went with the Republican ticket. If you watch The Apprentice, like that was the #1 rated show, reality show for the longest time. Like people loved Trump. You don't understand this. Like people loved this guy. He was just the rich playboy that everybody was like, yeah, Trump can do whatever. He's a cool dude. He had trannies, or I shouldn't say that, right? He had transsexuals on his show. He had drag queens on The Apprentice. I love the season with Joan Rivers. That's one of my favorite seasons. Actually, I said my favorite seasons like I watched The Apprentice. It's the only season that I watched, so it's my favorite season because of Joan Rivers. And that kind of weirded me out. I'm like, what's going on? How did that switch? So stuff like that, and I'm going with, I told you the whole history leading up to this. You see that I'm already somebody that's always questioning. And I'm always questioning the narrative, questioning the ones in authority who are saying these things. So I'm like, what's going on? And that even goes back, and I was speaking of Eddie here, who's going to feel attacked. That goes into Michael Jackson, y'all. Because, again, hopefully I'm not wrong. And only God knows. But given the evidence, given that the guy went to court, a very, very nasty, Justice Department there in California who were like seething at the mouth to just like get this guy to go to jail. And he won his case. Very difficult to win cases where you're being accused of child molestation. But he won the case. Right? We've had, the kid that accused him in '93 actually testified in his favor. Then you start going into like the parents, the money that they're trying to get out of this guy, blah, 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 blah. And I remember as a teenager, I was like, oh, Michael Jackson's a perv. Michael Jackson's a whack job. I believed that until after he died. And then I started, stuff, after people died, then, the journalists are all nice. And then one brave journalist will say, oh, and by the way, did you know this? And by the way, did you ever see this video where Jackson's calling out Tony Mottola and calling him the devil? Did you ever see this video where Michael Jackson's at the NAACP event and he's talking about how white folks, as soon as he became like bigger than Elvis, things switched, and his words, they started calling me a freak, they started calling me gay, they started calling me all these things as soon as I started winning. And I started thinking, hey, like the media manipulates, and I fell for it, and I don't want to fall for it again. I fell for it with Michael Jackson, and I don't want to fall for it again. Again, I do not believe that man did anything to those kids. And in fact, there's some conspiracy theories out now that maybe Neverland Ranch was like a way to protect kids from what's going on with Epstein. Again, not enough evidence out there yet to confirm that. But I can believe it. Jackson had a lot of connections. He was a very powerful man himself for a long time before the end of his life. So I don't like to be manipulated. Who does? Right? So that's the only kind of asterisk that I have for Trump. And I don't think people understand that when I'm attacking the media for being disingenuous and fake and misrepresenting what's coming out of this man's mouth, doesn't mean that I'm approving of him in all instances. I'll give you a perfect example, that Charleston stuff, where Kamala Harris at the very debate brought it up again. We're saying, this is the man that said there were good people on both sides. Watch that full clip and come back to me and tell me if that's exactly what that man said. Watch the full clip. Right, that's been debunked. That was even debunked on Snopes, which is considered a very leftist organization. Even on Snopes, that's been debunked. Does that mean, I believe Donald Trump is not a racist or doesn't have any racist thoughts or he's like an angel. Of course not. The guy's 70 what years old, 70 something. He grew up in America. If he doesn't have one racist bone in his body, then you grew up in the wrong country, guys. I mean, America's built on prejudice. I have prejudice myself. You know, I've been very open personally. I don't know if I ever said it out loud here publicly about how I had a lot of issues with trans people. I was kind of prejudiced as a gay man because I didn't understand that shit. And then I met a trans person. I actually stopped and talked to them. I was like, oh, that's what's going on. I mean, I don't understand it, but okay, you're a human being going through something, and you're a nice person, and I'm not going to attack you, and I will support you. You know, of course, we'll get to trans people later. You know, things have changed. But I don't like to be manipulated. Who does, right? So just because I'm not attacking Trump as much as you want me to, doesn't mean that, or I should rephrase that. Just because I'm attacking the media for attacking Trump more than you think I should, doesn't actually mean that I'm approving of everything that Trump does. And we'll get to 2026 Trump. So 2016 Trump was like a mess. I was like, thank God that's over. Thank God that's over. But then we got 2020, where it's like now we got Joe Biden, and then we got Trump. And you got the two worst choices, and you don't even have a cool libertarian candidate to choose from. And I think I wrote this in a post a few weeks back when Michael Hall pissed me off, where I was like, I wouldn't have voted for any of those two in 2020 because they were both like Trump. You know, all the stuff that he said he was going to do, he didn't build the wall. You know, it's not like it is now as far as, you know, the immigration policies. So everything he said with immigration, he didn't do. The trade wars were like, that was a mess and a half, right? You know, oh, and the swamp draining. Where was the swamp draining? You know, like one of his biggest defenders, Ann Coulter, was one of his biggest detractors after he became president. And a lot of conservatives, you know, were actually against Trump if you actually stop and listen, you know, because everybody's like in this little tunnel. They're only listening to their side. And according to their side, zero conservatives criticized Trump through the 2016 election. And that's just false. Plenty of them did. Not enough, I don't think, but plenty of them did. So then we get to 2026. Or today, you know, 20 whatever that we're at. And I'll tell you, and I stand by it, between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, if I were forced to vote in the United States, I would 100% have voted for Donald Trump. And why? Because I just agreed with him on some issues. Now, does this mean that I'm a follower of Donald Trump? No, it's a platform. Anybody could have been there and said the same things that Donald Trump said, because these are general platform positions. You know, immigration, you're either going to be for looser, although Kamala was like for open borders, or you're going to be for tighter borders. That's it. It could be any Republican, any Democrat. That's just how that debate's going to go. When it comes to wars, either you're going to be for continuing a war like Kamala Harris was up in Russia and Ukraine, and keep feeding the Ukrainian government bombs and just escalate this thing until we get into World War III, or you can have an anti-war stance. Like, oh, Ron Paul, and I totally forgot Ron Paul, the only politician that I like in America. Yes, I would have voted for Ron Paul in that 2016 too, whatever that election was. He was, because he was anti-war. I'm totally anti-war, and he was about America first. Get this country straight before you try to meddle with the rest of the world. So it's this guy. So I didn't change. Trump changed. Trump got closer to what Ron Paul believes in, and not 100%. That's why I'm not 100%. I'm not MAGA at all, you know, because there are things that he detracts from. Okay, there are very serious things that he detracts from, and which he has detracted from since becoming president, which includes bombing Iran, which includes buddy with the Zionists, in Israel and blah, 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 blah. There's a lot of things that I'm completely against the Trump administration, and I've been very vehement, that's the correct way to pronounce that, about it, okay? And that's where I am. That's where I am politically. I will attack what I think are falsehoods. Okay, I will 100% attack what I think are falsehoods because I like to know what the truth is before I attack somebody. And I think I've proven throughout this video that I have zero problem telling somebody to their face that you are wrong in what you're doing. This is not right, what you're doing. And 100% I have zero problem saying that about any politician. I don't have pet politicians. I don't have pet parties. Trump can go, fuck himself. Fuck you, Trump. What is Trump to me? Nothing. What is Obama to me? Nothing. What is Hillary Clinton to me? Nothing. What is Bill Clinton? Any of these guys? Nothing. Okay? They are nothing. So it's one thing criticizing a media that outright lies, okay, and manipulates words coming out of people's mouth. That's one thing, and supporting somebody is completely another. Okay, so can you get that in your head? Is that possible? Is that possible to understand that dichotomy there? So let's go on, because another thing happened around this time which makes it seem even more like I'm a Trump supporter. And again, I could give two shits about the guy. The only thing that I think kind of gets people, like, it takes people out for a loop is that I don't have like that Trump derangement syndrome. Like I can't bring myself, like not even if I drink my nice little cachaça here, can I bring myself to a point emotionally where I'm going to get all bent out of shape if somebody says, Trump said this. I'm like, okay, vote for somebody else, you know, like protest peacefully, counter program, make videos like I'm making, push more people to your side, and then you won't have Trump, continuing, or well, he can't be president again, but whatever that movement is, you're not gonna have MAGA after this term. It's that simple. I just can't make myself get that worked up about it. Okay, politically. So the other thing that happened around this time is that the left changed a lot. The right changed a lot, by the way. Yeah, let's make that clear. The right changed a lot. It went from being the moral right, the Christian right, to Trump. You just did a thing last week where it's like, I never read the Bible. Oh, surprise, surprise. If you're shocked by that, like, what world are you living in? So we have a right that is all over the place. It's mixed with people that are a little bit more right libertarian, and people that are more right neocon, and people that are more right still religious, and people that are just right like whatever. We just want smaller government, less taxes, and you figure out the rest. It's like, okay, different sections of the right. And on the left, a similar thing happened, but it's just progressive left, okay, which started out as a little flickered and grew to the point where I think the Democrats have lost the plot. Okay, they've lost black men, a lot of them, not all of them obviously, but you saw how many black men voted for Trump in the last election, like more than the last time. They're losing even the LGBT. There's more conservative trans people out there than even I think conservatives are comfortable admitting. So it's like the left is losing their base. What's going on? And that's the progressive policies. And that's the stuff that, like, somebody like Bill Maher, I've been listening to Bill Maher since like the 90s. Never was a huge fan. It's always been kind of, your average liberal talking points. But then he started ragging on the left as hard as he would rag on the right. Why? Because the left changed. He's still Democrat. He still hates Trump, even though they had a little dinner, and he kind of understands that, hey, Trump's a different person privately than he is publicly. But he still rags on him. He's still, Stephen A. Smith is another example. You can say, oh, he's just a political, no, he's a sports commentator. What does he know about politics? Well, you weren't saying that when he was defending Democrats for the longest time. You weren't saying that when he was on your side. And now that he's like, you guys are stupid and you're losing your base because you'd rather spend tax dollars and in social, money for social activities on illegal immigrants than on your own people. You traded the black vote for the immigrant vote, quote unquote. This is the reality of what's going on the left. And yes, that left I do not like at all. I disagree with 99% of what's coming out of that left's mouth. And that's where things get kind of funky. That's where we're going to get into Miss Higgins and Michael Hall. Because this left is very regimented, okay? And this left really, really, really needs you to walk in step and follow the leader. And I'm not a follow the leader dude, okay? Go back again. I said I wasn't going to ramble. I'm rambling, right? But I'm having fun. I hope you're having fun too. I see Ron Steinmetz. Actually, you're the dude that said, hey, are you feeling Brazil, I believe. The first time. I'm like, who the fuck is this dude? But, this is me. I'm feeling Brazil. So what happened with the left is all this progressive stuff started getting out of control to the point where I'm like, are we living in reality? Speaking of trans people, like, dude, that's a biological male punching a woman in the face. Aren't the Democrats supposed to be like the pro-women party? Weren't you the ones that always complain that conservatives couldn't attract women because you're too sexist, you're into the patriarchy and this and that, and now you're letting a dude punch a bitch in the face? What's going on? And I 100% support trans people. I love you people. I love you. If you're nice, if you're respectful, I love you. And even if you're not, I send love. That's a Jesus thing. But I ain't trying to see, like there was just a story about this girl who's a wrestler. And she didn't realize she was wrestling the dude. She had to wrestle a guy. He only found out later it was a biological male. And he put his finger in her private area as a wrestling move. These are young women who have to go inside locker rooms and see penises, right? Because not every trans person has transitioned. At least allow like the ones that have transitioned completely, that have, even if it's a fake vagina, but at least it's something that looks like a vagina, not a elephant trunk, or maybe a little worm, sticking out. That's disgusting. Again. But that's a different world now that we're living in. Like, what's going on? So when I start to say things like that, all of a sudden I become an enemy. All of a sudden, if I disagree with the left, I'm automatically on the right. And that's just like, the world is not split like that, guys. It's not binary. The majority of people, I have this belief, the majority of people are just normies, are people that have different views that clash but really don't. People that are pro-gun but pro-abortion. People that are pro-gay marriage and smoking their weed, but also, believe that the border should be closed so I can do it safely in the country that I love. I think majority of people are like that. And even if you go into the election, okay, Trump won by a landslide, but let's make it easy math. Let's say Trump wins by 100 million votes, which he didn't, but it was up there. Biden loses because he only got 90 million votes. That's 190 million people. America has what? Close to 300 million people. 1/3 of Americans did not vote, did not agree with either Trump or Biden. And in a certain way, you could say that 2/3 of America actually don't like you, Trump. Right? Why? Because it's not this or that. Life is not like that. If you believe life is like that, you're living in a false reality. A false reality of like this tunnel vision. I forgot, there's a term that I keep, was it a chamber? Or somebody help me there. It's like a echo chamber. Yeah, you're living in an echo chamber of just listening to the same people giving you the same things. It's like, it's like when here in Brazil, back in the day, this kid invited me to go to a debate, and I was like, this is not a debate. It's left versus left. They're just debating how far left the left wants to go. It's like if you had somebody in there that was a conservative, they would kick him out. He'd be a fascist. Like, that's not actual discourse. So I have a huge issue with what happened to the left, because I used to have that issue with the right. I had many issues with the right. As a gay person, as a black person, I did not feel welcomed by the right. I think most people can say that are black and gay and working class. They did not feel welcomed by the right for a very, very long time. Trump, 2024, he tried to change that a little bit. He came with a message that resonated a little bit more with the working class, with the regular people that wanted to end this war in Ukraine and Russia, and people that kind of said, especially black people, that said, yo, we have like 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 new motherfuckers in our neighborhood that need medical care, that need food, that need housing. The government's helping these people, but not helping us. We're the community. Like, what's going on? Like, how does that not make sense to you? Like, how that would make somebody upset enough to vote for Trump? Because Trump had a different message. It doesn't mean that he was right. Doesn't mean that he followed through on his promises. But that message was clear. And Kamala's message was very clear, too, of what she wanted. And what she wanted was trans women to be able to get free surgery, in prison. I keep bringing up the trans stuff because y'all made it an issue. There wasn't nobody talking about trans people. Really, they've been around forever. Trans people have been using the bathrooms forever. Nobody said shit. You guys made it an issue. So don't get upset at me if I keep bringing up trans people, but that was an issue. People don't like to say that, but people don't want to admit that was one of the defining issues. That and the border, I think, and the war were really the issues that defined this election. And we saw where the progressives were, and we saw where Trump was, which was closer to the Tea Party, closer to a more libertarian view. So again, just because I agree with those points doesn't mean that I'm agreeing with Trump himself. It could have been J.D. Vance. It could have been, what's his name, Mitt Romney. It could have been, what's the guy that died that I actually did like? I would have voted for him over Obama. McCain. It could have been McCain saying that stuff. It could have been anybody. It could have been Obama flipping a little bit and actually doing what the Democrats say they're going to do, which is like be the peace and love party. And being like, yeah, we really want to end this war in Ukraine and try to find some peace in the world because we don't want World War III. And not like Kamala Harris at the debate. The only time this bitch sounded halfway coherent was during the debate where she was foaming at the mouth about how Putin, he's going to go into Poland. He's like comparing him to Hitler, right? He's going to go into Poland and he's going to take this and we need to. I'm like, wow, she really wants World War III, like really, really, really bad. She won't even sit down and talk to this guy. The America had cut communications with Russia. How the hell do you cut communications with Russia when you're in the middle of a huge war that could lead to world-level catastrophic events? How do you cut ties with your greatest enemy in a situation like that? Where's the diplomacy? I was looking up on ChatGPT. Give me all the issues because I'm going to go run down all the issues so it's very clear to you where I stand on everything. And when we got to war, it said, Democrats believe in diplomacy and this and that. What? Where? The world is burning with you guys in power. Burning, America was burning. It was horrible. I mean, guys, it was a terrible time in America. I mean, you can say shit about 2016 Trump. That's true too, but a lot of that was brought on by the media. Media stoking the fire. Biden time, the media loves the left. They're not going to attack. How long did it take for the media to admit that, yeah, maybe he's got some mental issues. Maybe he's getting old and he's getting dementia. How long did it take for them to say that when we were like, what's going on? What's going on, America? This guy's fumbling all his words, right? So it was a very clear choice for me. And that's why I say, if I could go back in time, 100% I would have voted for Trump in 2024. But that's pre-Epstein, guys. Pre-Epstein, okay? So put your thinking hats on before you make assumptions here. But again, that's based on the platform, not the person. Platform, not the person. Get that in your head. Platform, not the person. Which brings me to Epstein. Guys, I'm so glad this guy was arrested. It took long enough. I mean, Democrats are in power for a very long time. You know, they could have done it themselves, really, because people were calling for this guy to be arrested. He was already arrested, what, 2008 or not? I forgot now, but he was arrested back in the day for stuff having to do with pedophilia, right? And some people still chose to associate with it. Trump didn't, though, and we'll get into that. Trump didn't. But we have many politicians. We have Bill Clinton, who apparently went to that island very time. I mean, according to reports, you know, allegedly. And I liked the stance, the stance that the Trump administration had of like, we're gonna let all this stuff out, right? Wasn't that the whole idea? Doge, right? We're the Department of Government Efficiency, drain the swamp 2.0 this time. We have a mandate from the American people. We got the House, we got the Senate. We are in power. Nothing can stop us. We're gonna let you know where Bigfoot is, right? That was kind of like the mood. Even if you watch, but little asterisk, little aside here. Watch interviews with Trump during this time. He was like, yeah, that would be good. Yeah, that would be interesting. People around him were more gung-ho about that than he was. And I think there's reasons for that, which I'll get into. I will let it all out tonight. Tonight, I'm on fire tonight. And thank you guys for watching. And I hope to do these more. You know, I'm growing my social media presence for many reasons on many different platforms, and I think Facebook is one that I've been neglecting. I'm gonna be here. I'm gonna be talking directly to you and answering your questions and saying controversial shit, and hopefully you will enjoy it. Oh, I think somebody just got home. Anyway, getting back to what I was trying to get to, okay, is that Epstein stuff comes out. I'm 100%. First off, let's just say this is disgusting. This is sick. It's nothing new. You know, remember I mentioned Alex Jones back in the day, right? Nothing new. Gatinho, outra porta tá aberta. And so, abre outra porta. Oh, all right. Sorry about that. I thought he was locked outside. Somebody's in the house. Anyway, let me get my train of thought back and get to the meat of this. You know, there's going to be a long live here, but I want to get to the meat of it right now. Okay? First off, remember I mentioned Alex Jones. I have no doubt that all of these powerful elites are doing some really powerful elite nasty shit. If you have any doubt that any of this nasty shit was going on before Epstein gets arrested and Epstein gets offed in jail, right, allegedly, then I think you're living on a different planet. So let's break it down. I got this, you know, I have somebody in the house now. I got a little distracted, but go. He's asking me if he can take a shower. So you might hear the shower noise, guys. I'm a married man. I'm a married man. Let's get back. Okay? We're talking Epstein. Guys, so first off, it wasn't shocking to me. So if your first, you know, because I was accused of not attacking Trump enough, and especially by Helen, to the point where she's like, hey, you're in Brazil. She sent me like this Instagram post. I said, oh, girls were stolen from Brazil for sex trafficking. And she asked me this really, I don't know the word in English, but kind of like a question that had a little bit more behind it. She's like, yeah, you're still friends with some people that support Trump, right? And which, first off, that's a lie, you know, because I know these people she's talking about, and trust me, these same people that supposedly support Trump, they've told me personally, if he's in there, fuck him. I got, you know, these people that supposedly are like clan, what they call members of the Trump cult, who on their own Facebook page argue with MAGA people and say, yo, I'm out. You know, these same people that even before Epstein came out were anti-Trump when he bombed Iran. And that includes even big famous conservatives like Tucker Carlson, what's her name, Candace Owens, Megyn Kelly to some extent. You see, these guys are like, yo, that's not what I voted for. That's been like the splinter. And you can read plenty of articles on this. It's not like I'm making this stuff up. People have splintered because of how Trump has reacted to Epstein and some of his campaign promises, especially when it comes to not being involved in wars, in any type of conflict abroad, like Venezuela, what happened in Venezuela. All right, bada bing, congratulations, cool action, Maduro needed to go, but why did it have to be the U.S.? Like, come on, right? So, one, it was not shocking for me. If anybody remembers the, what was her name? The Washington Madam Black Book. Remember her? Who remembers her? The DC Madam Black Book refers to, her name was Deborah Jean Palfrey, who ran a high-end DC escort service, Pamela Martin and Associates, catering to elite clients. Her Black Book records detailing thousands of phone calls and client names, became a scandal when she was charged with racketeering in 2007-2008, and threatened to expose high-profile, influential figures before committing suicide. So again, if your accusations or your discontent with me is that, oh my God, Phil is not saying fuck you enough times, and like, you know, tearing his clothes off and screaming on the street. Guys, we have been ruled by psychos and maniacs since forever. It's like, it goes like this now, right? So I just can't get that worked up about it. I just can't, because we just know that this is the reality, okay? So when Epstein comes out, I'm like, oh, you know, more of the same, just that it's way sicker, because now it's involving children. It's possibly, you know, by some of the stuff that's coming out, involving torture, death, some really macabre stuff. But even that, for me, wasn't like shocking, because I said, I go way back to when Alex Jones was talking about Bohemian Grove, you know, these secret societies where supposedly, you know, they were drinking the blood of babies and stuff like that, which doesn't sound that science fiction-y anymore, does it? Right? So that's number one. Okay? If you're on my page and you're like, why isn't Phil coming hard enough? But two, I do come hard, dude. I mean, I just was congratulating my friend Justin, who we disagree on some things politically. But you know what? Every day he posted this cool site that had like all of the emails. Like this guy compiled all the emails, stuff that the government redacted. It's out there. You can read through all of it. He's posting stuff about fuck Clinton, fuck Trump, fuck anybody that's involved in this. And it's a, what do you call it? Open season on everybody. You know, Pam Bondi's saying, if we release the Epstein files, the house is going to fall. That's what we've been asking for. That's what I've been asking for. I asked for that. Read my earlier posts. Right? So if you come on my page, or not even on my page, because these were private messages, and Michael Hall was very similar. He's like, well, the Epstein, I remember you saying that nothing would come out of this, that the Epstein files will never be released, and at the least you should stop being so arrogant and watch what you're saying and blah 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 blah. And I'm like, yo, dude, I still don't believe that we're ever gonna get to the full bottom of it. It's cool that we're getting what we're getting, but I need like house tumbling down type X-Files Epstein files out in the public. I want to read names. I want to see who was there, who did what, when, where, for how much. That's the Epstein files coming out. Not just, oh, Prince Andrew. We knew about Prince Andrew. So that's the message to you, Mr. Hall, is that I still don't believe it's sufficient. You know, I'm more, you know, what's the word? Exigente is how you say it in Portuguese. I'm more demanding. I expect more. Catinho, você fecha a porta um pouquinho que eu tô gritando aqui. I asked my boy to close the door because I'm screaming and ranting. So now we'll get to the good stuff. Now Phil's head is gonna, steam is coming from my head because now I'm coming for you, motherfuckers. So if you come on my page, and let me explain what my page is about. My page is it's what I'm doing now. I like to talk, I like to communicate, and I like you people to comment. Look at the comment section. I just posted something. It was like a little meme, from friends. Like, Epstein was Jewish. Maxine, whatever the fuck her name is Jewish. Her dad was Mossad. So everything is related to. And then the guy says Russia. And then I have a friend that I love, Mr. Amir. He's like, I call bullshit on that. I didn't fight him. That's his opinion. I disagree with him. All right? Totally disagree with him. I think the Zionist side of Israel is evil. And it's like one of the worst things. One of the worst things or institutions on planet Earth, that causes a lot more trouble than good. And that's totally different than saying the people of Israel are a certain way, and Jews are a certain way. 1 second. Stucky. Okay, so, what do you call it? So, I lost my train of thought. Once more, I'm getting interruptions here in the house. What was I talking about? Yeah, how my page runs, how I run my page. But that's not just how I run my page, that's how I run my life. I'm interested in you. I'm interested in what you got to say, even if I disagree with it. Every time that I've unfriended somebody, it's not because I unfriended them, it's because they unfriended me. And most of them, like I said, come from the left. And we'll get into that too. Come from the left. I fucked a bitch. Like I'm gay, but I fucked a bitch. I ate her out really good too. Who was a super Marxist. Like she told me on a date, my dream would be to vacation in North Korea. I still fucked the bitch. Still fucked her. Right? Because she was cute. So I don't give a shit what you think about. What you believe, what you don't believe. If you think that the government should give everybody $1,000 a month and just, we live in some weird, whatever future where everybody just got their like little houses and I don't know, some weird Stepford Wives future, with the elites and then us at the bottom. I don't care. I'm going to fight against it. I'm going to vote against it every time I get out, protest against it, but I don't care. I honestly don't care what you believe. On an emotional level. I care on an intellectual level because I want to get to know you. I want to know why you think the way that you do. And that's how I run this page. If you're far left, write on my page. If you're far right, write on my page. But just be respectful. That's what I'm about. I'm about being respectful. You can disagree and disagree respectfully. But the minute that you're not respectful, that's when things get a little twisted. And then I come on here and call you out. Or I post something on my page calling you out. I declined to mention Michael Hall's name out of, because I knew the dude for a very long time. And I didn't want to put him out there. But now you're out there. You're an asshole, Michael Hall. And you're a racist, Michael Hall. And you don't even realize that you're a racist. And Ms. Higgy, what you said to me, sending me this out of the blue. Sends me that TikTok, whatever. It's there on my page. You can see it. And then insinuating, I hope that you being friends with people that still support Trump doesn't reflect on your character in this stuff right here, as if I'm sex trafficking down here in Brazil. And then I'm like, wow, that was a nice, you can read it. I tried to, because it was so shocking. Speaking of shocking, that did shock me. And I was like, that was a nice thing to say. What a fucked up thing to say, right? Good afternoon to you. And then she went on this long diatribe that ended with, in short, I hope this doesn't reflect on you. I don't know what your persuasion is, but that would be quite a moral dilemma. Fuck you, bitch. Fuck you, Miss Higgy. You fat fuck. Yeah, you got me. You got me to go there. And you're twisted. People that have seen her comments on my page, remember, when Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Guys, a man, I don't care if you hated every word that came out of his mouth. I don't care if you hated every word that came out of his mouth. A man was assassinated in broad daylight, live on television for children to see. And there's people celebrating this? Like, where has your heart gone? where's your soul gone if that doesn't affect you in some way? A guy just talking, and you could, and I don't care. Again, people, when I say this, all of a sudden people, and it happened at that time, oh, you're defending Charlie Kirk. You must be a Charlie Kirk. I could give a shit about Charlie Kirk. I never liked the guy. Like, not because I disagreed. He just wasn't part of my reality. Every once in a while, it was kind of weird though, because right before he died, it seemed like a lot of Charlie Kirk clips were just showing up on my Facebook page. But again, I know how the algorithm works. Maybe one showed up that I kind of liked, and then all of a sudden, like, I'm the Charlie Kirk fan, and then like I'm getting a bunch of videos from him. But he was just a dude out on college campuses debating kids. Right? And you could disagree with his point of view. You can say, oh, he was a racist, he was a sexist, he was a transphobe. But these are just things that, like, he thought. And yeah, okay, he fought to try to get these, certain laws implemented that would agree with what he thought. But that's where you, as somebody that disagrees, fights for laws that goes against what he thought, not shoot a motherfucker. And the fact that there were people that were celebrating this, that's sick. That's just sickness, right? Like, where has your soul gone? And this is the woman that was celebrating this, then trying to accuse me and stuff like that, which it's an accusation. I mean, she did it in a way that legally I can't accuse her of slander or some type of accusation, but it's that insinuating shit. And I'm like, wow. How could somebody say that to another human being? How could there not be an exchange, especially since I knew this woman and I helped her very much? And the same thing with Michael Hall. What the liberals don't understand, and that's why they're losing the black vote, and they're losing people, well, they never had people like me, but they're losing people like me, is because it's the same thing. And it's so funny because what's Fetterman, I think that is his name, he like took the words out of my mouth because I was trying to get in my head, what am I going to say tonight? What am I going to say? And like I said, I wrote down a lot of things, but it's a lot. And I know I'm rambling, but thank you guys for joining, Moses, Eddie, all these guys. And by the way, I don't want to put people's business out there, but there were, in that insinuation, I know exactly who they're targeting, which is a friend that I have. It's like the only friend that I have, I think, that's a Trump voter. I don't have a lot of friends that are Trump voters. And dude, like, this person takes care of a very young person. Like, the fact that you're saying this, it's like, you're not just talking about me, you're talking about this dude and his character. So it's really fucked up when you just throw stuff out there, and it's so funny because then I cursed her out privately and then blocked her, and 100% I know she's probably on her page now, Miss Higgins, probably talking about me and saying, oh, and he attacked me and he called me a fat cow and a bitch and this. So she's 100% playing the victim when she started it. Going back to like grade school. I was chilling, man, and you come at me with some, there's sex trafficking in Brazil, wonder what you're up to down there. That's fucked up, and it's especially fucked up because I do work with a lot of expats. I have a podcast called the Brazil Expat Journal that I do every Monday, like when I can. Hopefully on Monday I'll get on there and you can hear the story about this really racist thing that happened to me down here in Brazil. I actually wrote a big letter to this company. They haven't answered me, so I'm going to put them on blast on Monday on the Brazil Expat Journal. Really fucked up what they did to me. Just straight up harassment. But I do tours down here. There's people that come down here. You can see pictures. I mean, I just talked about Ace Live. Ace Live was down here for like 2 weeks or more. I did this video with him. It's got over 200, 300,000 views. People still connect with me because of that video. I got stopped on the street in December by this guy from Haiti that was like, yo, are you Phil? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you're the reason I came to Brazil. Thank you very much. So my voice has impact, right? And if you're accusing me or insinuating that because I'm not as vehement as you think I should be, when the fact is I'm very vehement about my views on Epstein, on Trump, fuck them all, right? In Clinton, anybody that's involved, fuck them all, right? But to insinuate that when I'm doing tours down here, and a lot of times it is black men that come down here solo, is really fucked up because it puts an image in people's mind about what Phil is doing down here. And you know what I'm doing down here? You can connect to all the people that have come down here, right? Because I always post. I post about it. I take pictures with these people. I show, what I'm doing down here with these guys, right? And in fact, on the Brazil Expat Journal, I had a whole episode with Travelmatic, who's a fan of the show, real cool guy, has a lot of great content. He travels around the world, but he goes to Brazil a lot, about passport bros and how fucked up that is. That whole culture of passport bros, right? And it's fucked up because, I was going to say about Mateus, he's like 26 now, but I've been kind of like a mentor in Mateus's life since he was about 14. And why is that? Because I've been a mentor in this this other little boy's life called José. And anybody that's close to me knows about the story of me and José. But I wrote it in my book, 40 on 40, when I turned 40. And I wrote 40 chapters about things that mean something to me. Buy it. It's on Amazon. I'll link it at the bottom. And I go really in depth about how I met him, what he means to me. That's my heart. He's not my biological son. He's not even my adopted son, but that's my child. And he's 21, 22 now. Just talked to him now. Healthy, doing well for himself. And I will pat myself on the back in saying that I'm positive that because of the influence that I've had on his life, he isn't in some gang or dead or just totally fucked up, right? So you saying that reflects on my relationship with him. I have friends that haven't met him. In fact, one of them commented on that post with Miss Higgy because I went to her house with Jose. We went to the pool. We had a fun day. I have videos of that day. Really fun. So I have young people in my life who are not older who they mean everything to me. In fact, I think I posted on my YouTube channel about Seba, who's Mateus' brother. So what happened is José befriended Mateus one day when they were flying kites. So I kind of befriended this family because it was somebody for José to have as a friend, when he was down here, because very far from where he lives, when he would come and stay with me during the summer. So I still know this family to this day. I almost went down to the south to see them. I just wasn't able to at the end of the year, but I really want to. I got to see them. I miss them. The one son stayed behind. He married this girlfriend that he dated since he was like 17. He's like 22, 23 now. I got invited to the wedding. I was the best man. I've always said I hate ceremonies, I hate weddings, but I was there for that. I was there for my little dude, who's a big dude now. And these people are like, these boys mean everything to me. Like, they're my heart. And I'm proud of what I've been able to be for them as a mentor, and I'll mention another guy, Caio, and I had friends that I've met. Caio, he's a trap singer. He comes to this very house, nearly every Friday and sits in this very room nearly every Friday to record his tracks. He's very talented. I've known this boy since he was like 17, and I'm so proud of the fact that I've been able to give him this space to do his art, to express himself and not be out in the streets doing bullshit. Like Mateus slept in this house, in this room for damn near a year because his mom was so, like, she was out, like, what's the expression? Out of her wits, is that the expression? Because every night he was hanging out with like hardcore gangster dudes, dude. I know the guy. I'm not gonna say his name for security reasons, but I looked him straight in the eye. The drug dealer that he was messing with, the little small time gangster, and I could just see in the eyes like, ooh, that guy's bad news. And the minute I met this guy, I pulled Mateus over. It's like, what's going on? I had that boy up on the wall one night because he was trying to talk smack to me, right? Because he thought he was a little gangster pointing his finger at my little cousin's face. And I was like, you point that finger in his face again and you're going to see what the fuck's going to happen to you, right? I don't mess around with respect, right? I'm a little dude, but respect, man, I don't care. I see blood in the eyes, right? I remember back in my own house, back when I was like 17, 18, this big, fat, white, bald motherfucker. My mom used to rent rooms out. He started, rented a room out. Guy was like 6 feet tall, like looked like Butterbean. You know what happened? He would take advantage of my mom and ask for her car, and then all of a sudden he was just driving whenever he wanted on my mom's car. My mom didn't know what the fuck to do because she was a, sweet old lady. Man, I went down there. One, I pissed on his toothpaste or on his toothbrush, there you go. I pissed on his toothbrush. But then one night, before he went upstairs, I confronted him. Guy's this tall, little old me. Back in the day, I was like a $118. Now I'm like, at least now I can kind of give a fight. I weigh a little bit more. I got a little bit more muscle mass. But I didn't care. Because truth is truth. Protecting people is real. Okay? I'm a protector. Protecting my mom is real. And I would have died that night, and I didn't care. I stood up to him and said, "You never touch my mom's car." And I had a screwdriver. Little people, we got weapons. It was either a screwdriver or... No, it wasn't a screwdriver. It was one of those wrenches. I think I had a wrench kind of behind my back in case he went crazy. And my dad was there. He came down too, and we kind of stood up to him. But it was led by me, because my dad didn't speak that much English. So I do not care. I don't care if you're sick. I don't care if you're Mike Tyson. I will die. I know I'm going to die. So I'm not trying to act tough like I'm a tough guy. No, you will kill me. I'm okay with that. But I'm okay with dying in justice, dying in truth, dying with my integrity. Right? I've always been like that. And I'm glad I continue to be like that. So when Miss Higgy, Ellen, whatever the fuck, actually let me get her name because I deleted Helen Higginbotham. What a name. So when somebody like Helen Higginbotham, who I've helped, comes on my private chat and writes that bullshit that he writes, and I didn't erase hers, I erased Michael's, So yes, I'm asking you, if that is your persuasion, you don't have to tell me, but if it is, it's quite the moral dilemma as I see it. Good afternoon back, right? But she starts with, you have interesting friends who support Donald Trump still. I hope they're not a reflection of you. And then right below, Epstein brought 9-year-old Brazilian girls. He sent me this Facebook post. So when you say shit like that to me, it's an attack on my person. It's an attack on who I am as a person who tries to have integrity, who tries to have respect, who's always willing to listen, who's always willing to help, who's always willing to give of his time and sometimes of his money. And I'm not rich, trust me, guys. I live in the negative down here in Brazil in my overdraft. But I believe that, it's nice to be nice to people. It's nice to be nice. Jesus talking again, okay? So that's fucked up, So again, just to summarize... That went on for quite some time, but I think this is important because I need people to know, for those that don't know. And that's where, my mind is kind of shifting, and I'm starting to understand that, hey, you have a voice. You've always had a voice, and I think somewhere along the line I got a little down on myself and a little insecure, especially when it comes to music, And now I'm kind of like, yo, I have a voice, I have talent, I have the capacity to connect with people, and people connect, whether it's a class of 20 adolescents. That's another thing. I work with kids, dude. I work at a high school. You're going to say some shit like that? I mean, at least you're going to do it publicly. But still, right? It's fucked up. So whether it's those 20 young kids, whether it's when I'm working in immersion and there's like 50 adults, whether it's talking to you and, there's 5, 6, 7 people here, but who knows how many views this will get. Whether it's on Reddit where I'm writing about Star Trek and 20,000 people like and engage. Whether it was in my blog and same thing, 5,000, 10,000 people would read what I'm talking about. I have an audience, I have a voice, I need to accept that. And now I need to kind of accept the second part of that, which is wicked people will come. Fucked up people will come. And definitely people with mental derangement will come. And I just have to be able to really put them in their place. And I will put you in your place because I'm standing on the side of truth and integrity, and I'm fearless. You are 100% fearless when you're like that. And I think that's just important because I want to invest more. Like I said, I don't do a lot of stuff here live-wise on Facebook, but I'm going to change that a little bit because I do have my YouTube channel where I talk more about travel, Brazil Expat Journal, and Star Trek and movies. Pete, shout out to Pete. On Instagram, it's just music. I don't get political there. I'll post sometimes a story if it's like Palestinians getting massacred again. Uh, TikTok completely just travel, music. I try to keep politics out, but I see that Facebook is the politics page. I like politics. I want to continue talking politics and social issues with you guys, but you need to know where I'm coming from. Where I distrust all of them. I distrust the system. I'm a fan of none of these politicians. And just because I happen to agree with something that Trump is saying doesn't mean that I agree with Trump. It's the platform. There are platforms. Trump is not reinventing the wheel. Closing a border is not reinventing the wheel, right? Saying, yes, people should have the right to own guns is not reinventing the wheel. Saying, what else is it? Saying, yeah, maybe trans women and kids shouldn't be getting their bodies mutilated is not reinventing the wheel. Anybody could say that, right? It doesn't have to come. It's not because he said it that like all of a sudden, oh, Trump said it and now I see the light. Fuck Trump. And he's still doing a better job than Kamala would have. But then it gets to like the Epstein stuff, right? Then it gets to the Epstein stuff. Guys, remember I talked about Michael Jackson a little bit before, and I even talked about myself and how I've been accused of like nasty stuff before. I take that shit seriously. Okay, so I'm not in the business, and you notice I haven't attacked either Trump very hard personally, although it's starting more and more, right? Because I am attacking the fact that his administration is not releasing these files, but I'm talking about him. Like, was Trump a sicko pedophile getting young girls from Epstein? Like, I've never come out and said that. The same way I've never come out and said that about Obama. The same way I've never come out and said that about Bill Clinton or anybody where like it's not clear. The evidence is clear because I take stuff like that very, very seriously. You saw what happened during Me Too, which I 100% support the Me Too, or supported the idea of the Me Too movement. Let me reword that. But you saw how quickly it turned into a witch hunt to the point where even Neil deGrasse Tyson got caught in there. He escaped, by I don't know how, but it just became, oh, she did it, he did it. And then in the mix of all of that, the guys that were real culprits sometimes would get away because if everybody's guilty, nobody's guilty. It just becomes a laughing stock. So I'm not in the business of just pulling out and just accusing people. That's just, you're not going to get that from me. You're not going to get that from me. As soon as it's like, boom, because, and I mentioned the whole thing with Michael Jackson. That really, really, really affected me because that man died. That man was taken, that man who by all accounts only protected children, I'm saying it, only spent money with all these charities to help people who, from all accounts, everybody that's ever talked to him, including kids who are now adults who spent time with him in his Neverland Ranch, said he never. All he wanted to do was just be helpful. Yes, he had some psychological issues where it's like he was stuck in his 10-year-old self because he never had a childhood, blah, 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 blah. Definitely had some dysmorphia issues with that face, but he also had vitiligo. He never turned white, guys. Vitiligo, okay? He was very, very, very aware of the fact that he was a black man despite his light features, which isn't even white. Have you ever seen a white person look like Michael Jackson? He was like blanket. He was like this wall white. Okay, that's a disease called vitiligo that a lot of people suffer from. And if you look at videos, even back in the 80s, he starts putting on makeup to hide the spots that would show up. So I'm not saying Michael Jackson didn't have issues. A lot of very famous people have issues, especially creative types. But do I think he was a child molester? Given the evidence, no. But I was duped. So I'm not in the business of making these wild accusations about anybody. That said, like I just, I share, from my friend Justin, I was just talking about the fact that you're hiding stuff, the fact that you're not being as transparent about this makes you look guilty. And that I will say, it does make you look guilty. Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, Obama, and anybody else. Hillary Clinton and all that. All the pizza you guys are eating. It makes you look guilty as fuck. Which means I already didn't trust you because I just have a general distrust of authority figures in general. But now even more. So I'll hit that key, till I go blue in the face, until the actual files are released, Michael Hall, which they have not been released to my satisfaction. So fuck you coming at me all crazy and twisted, right? So as soon as that happens, trust me, burn it all down. Like those Pam Bondi memes, where it's like, guys, if we say who's on the list, it's all gonna come. That's what we want. It's all gonna. That's what we want. We want it to come crashing down because you guys are evil. You're evil. Okay. Now, the extent of the evil, we got to know what the extent of the evil is and who. And that's another thing. It's just like with P Diddy. There was a whole thing that. And actually, I had to take a step back a little bit because I was like, okay, they're going wild with P Diddy. Were there minors involved? There was a case with a minor, I think. So that already, it's over. But if P Diddy's having parties at his house, getting people lathered up, and it's all consensual, what's the problem? The problem is, okay, he's spiking drinks. He's got young girls coming up. If that's the issue, okay, we can talk about how evil P Diddy is. But if it's just about him having sex parties at his house, adults will do what adults do. If it's all consensual, I can give two shits. So that's another rabbit hole I don't want to go down because it became so sensationalistic what was going on with P. Diddy that I think he got less time than he deserved because I think there was some heavy trafficking going on that involved younger girls, especially when you have the connection with R. Kelly and all that stuff. But because of the sensationalism, it waters stuff down and it just... you end up not getting justice, just like with Me Too. Where's Me Too now? It's kind of gone, right? Because it just became a joke. So I'm very careful with stuff like this. In Epstein's the same thing, just the way P. Diddy knew everybody. So just, imagine if I was a famous dude, I'm playing my guitar, I got a picture with P. Diddy. It's P. Diddy. He has the #1 song in America. Am I part of that? Was I at the after parties? P. Diddy had a picture with everybody. Epstein's got pictures with everybody. And just like, the DC Madam, I'm sure that he was also a pimp, okay, in that he made a lot of younger women above 18 available to a lot of people, but then there was the extra, so that's the part where we need to be careful with because I want the right people to go down. If it becomes just like everybody's guilty, then nobody's guilty. We've seen it happen over and over and over and over and over. Let's continue pressing for the administration to release the files, support Democrats, support Republicans, support anybody that's saying release the files. And then, I'm ready. Guns are blazing, man. Everybody's going to get a FU and everybody's going to get you should be in jail card, regardless if it's right, left, if it's Trump, if it's Obama, if it's Bill Gates, if it's Elon Musk. I don't care because it changes nothing in my life. You guys deserve to pay for what you have done. Now, all that said, I believe that the reason Trump doesn't want to release these files is less about him, and even, this will be controversial, but hey, I whatever. These are my thoughts, okay? You can clap back if you want. Respectfully, show me evidence to the contrary. Bill Clinton, let's go with Bill Clinton, because everybody is not attacking Bill Clinton as much as they should. Is there evidence, or have I seen behavior in Bill Clinton throughout the years that kind of, that he's into young girls? I mean, the people that he slept with while he was with Hillary proves otherwise. Do I believe he was into women? A lot of women, and Epstein probably gave him access to a lot of women over 18, 100%. It's another question if are they under 18? Then it's like, it's a whole new can of worms. And then it's like, you got to investigate that and make sure that that's true before you go and accuse a man of having underage sex with these little girls. And I think with Trump it's the same thing. He was a playboy. He did all the pageants. Of course, he was in his 40s at the time, 50s, so he wasn't even like dirty old man status yet. He's kind of like, okay, his playboy status. And do I think he fucked around and Epstein got him a bunch of young girls, but not necessarily underage? That's what I believe. And that's going to be, and there's probably some really embarrassing things about Trump in those files That's one. That's one reason why I don't think he wants them out. And two is how we were seeing the whole connection with Mossad, how Epstein was an agent for these people, and how Epstein became like the blackmail book. He created a blackmail file, picture of this guy in compromising position. Because imagine, even if you get a politician, imagine Tony Blair, get a picture of him, having a threesome with like a 20-year-old black dude, and no, Epstein didn't like blacks. So some 20-year-old little lady boy from the Philippines and some whore, from the east of London, a white girl. That can fuck up somebody's life and career. It doesn't even have to be underage. So I think a lot of the reason why there's this reticence of some of it has to do with just that. But it doesn't change the fact that Epstein was involved in all this other stuff. So then it comes the question of like, did you continue to have communication and interaction with this man after you discovered, he was prosecuted for, underage, something dealing with underage girls. And then that becomes a bit of an issue, right, for you. So again, just to make it very clear, if there's evidence enough where we're going to prosecute, or we're going to take this to court, where people are going to go to jail, I'm all in. Do I have my personal opinions? Yes, but I'm not about stating personal opinions of a criminal nature, of like accusing somebody of a crime without ample evidence. That said, I'm 100% behind anybody, whether they're left, whether they're right, who are calling for a complete release of these Epstein files. We deserve to know who was involved and who wasn't involved in all of this stuff, so that we can have an actual intelligent discussion about it and what the heck happens next. That's my stance, okay? And if that means, Miss Higgy, that I'm not attacking Trump enough, therefore I may probably have, some connections to sex trafficking down here in Brazil, fuck you. That's all I can say to that. That means that you can't connect ideas. Your IQ is not high enough where you can take an idea from here, an idea from here, an idea from here, and be able to juggle them and make sense of them at the same time, even if they may feel or seem like contradictory ideas. You need to have a little higher IQ to be able to do stuff like that. So I understand. That's why I'm not mad at you. I can't stay mad at you, because I realize through many of our interactions that not only is your soul wicked, your soul is wicked, your mental capacity is low. So I can't get mad at retarded people. I can't stay mad at them. I get a little mad, but I can't stay mad at them. So I get it. I get how these are tough things for people to understand. How could Phil say this and then say that? That's how that works, people. That's how that works. Okay? I want to come to a close, because I've been on here for at least an hour, I think. I want to thank everybody that came in. I hope I made myself clear, as far as what I stand for, what I don't stand for. As far as how my social media operates, where, yes, it's a free-for-all. Just be respectful. I don't care what political persuasion you are. Be respectful, okay? And realize that, hey, if you have a strong opinion on something, somebody might have a strong opinion that contradicts you. Be respectful. Speaking of, like, I saw Moses and Eddie. You're both on here. You both were going at it last week. I didn't say anything. I'm like, yo, that's on you guys. Just be respectful. Be respectful, No, everybody doesn't have to like everybody, but we should at least respect each other and not just go on the attack. And actually, that's the last thing I want to say, going on the attack. Because I liked, I was kind of strong in my language with the post against what Miss Higgy said. And one of the things, I started out saying left-wingers are disturbed. I forgot what language I used. They're fucked up. They're retarded. they're insane. They're sick. And again, that goes back to what I said before. Just because I'm complaining or I'm pointing out that the media, misinforms and twists what may come out of a politician's mouth. Doesn't mean that I agree with that politician, but I want to be able to disagree with him on facts and not on a media manipulation of what that politician said. So circling back around, when I go against the left, that's because personally the left is the group that has attacked me the most. Okay, that doesn't mean that the right doesn't also have their whack jobs, and the right doesn't, say some really nasty things. But as what Fetterman said, when the right gets mad at me, they just call me names. They call me retarded. They call me slow. They call me fat. Whatever. It's like high school shit. And then when the right attacks me, or when the left attacks me, because I go against them, they want me dead. And it's really like it's that serious, y'all. It's like a personal affront when I disagree with the left. One, it's automatically I'm a right-wing Christian conservative, and I'm like, on what planet? They wouldn't have me, It's like that old line from what's his name? I was gonna say Karl Marx, but Groucho Marx, where he said, "I'd never join a club that would accept me as a member," right? Yeah, like I have nothing to do with those people. Again, they exist over there. I don't get bent out of shape because they exist. I don't go crazy because they exist, but they're over there. I'm here, and I just happen to disagree vehemently with what you're saying over there. And man, it's like a personal attack on their integrity, on their whole state of being. So when I say, when it seems like I'm attacking the left more, it's because I am. Because they're the ones that seem to attack me more and really go for personal attacks when I disagree with them. And it's like, it's not something new, and it's even here in Brazil. Very good friend. I had to yell at her. Thank God we were able to mend that friendship. I kid you not. She would send me articles in Portuguese, about something some left-winger was doing. I'd be like, all right, I kind of agree with that. There should be more schools over here. There should be more... Right, and she's like, yeah, da-da-da. And then she would send me another article from some left-wing page where I'm like, this is stupid. Like, why would they do this? Like, this is really dumb. And then all of a sudden she would be like, well, you know what? You're Portuguese. You've only been here about 3 years. One, you don't understand the culture. Two, your Portuguese is really not that good. And very condescending. So I noticed when I go away from what's going on over there, it's all condescending. It's all poor Phil. He really doesn't get it. It happened to me earlier this year, and I called the dude out, because again, he brought up politics. And then I kind of just had to say, yeah, I kind of don't ride with that. And then I told him, like, what you did was totally nasty. You're totally condescending to me. And I kind of cut connections with him, because I see now you're looking at me differently. You're judging me based on something so, and to me it's arbitrary, what somebody's political views are. Like, I don't care. I really don't care. So that's why I attack the left more. That's why Get Out is one of my favorite movies, because I have more of a hatred and fear, actual fear, of left-wing liberals, white ones specifically, than I do of white conservative Republicans. Because at the very least, a white conservative Republican who's racist is going to tell you, like, in a second. You're going to know. So that's why I say I don't care, because I'm like, if somebody's a Nazi, chances are they're not going to want to be my friend. Like, chances are, if somebody's an actual racist or homophobe or whatever, chances are they're not going to be my friend. So why am I even going to worry about what their political view is? Like, I'm going to be me. I'm going to fight for things that go against what they say, but I'm not worked up about these people. If they have some type of hate towards me because of their religion, their political ideology, they're over there. I wish the left was like that. The left is not. The left, when they come after, like, these messages that I got on my Instagram private feed, just out of nowhere, literally out of nowhere, right? Like, we were over, Like, I can't stay stuck in a moment. I can't stay stuck in rage. I don't want to carry your negative energy with me throughout my day. I got cachaças to drink. I got beautiful cities to see. I got music to play. I got so many more wonderful things to do than carry your negative energy with me. Right? So I honestly do not care. But they come at you, they really make you feel small, and it's somewhat hurtful. It's like, luckily for me, I have like 1% feeling left in my heart. I'm joking, but yeah, I was kind of hurt by that. I was like, fuck this bitch, who does she think she is? But that's how they work. They're like, if you step off the plantation, they will come for you and they'll make you feel stupid. It's one of the reasons why my TikTok and Instagram, I don't talk politics, because I work with a lot of artists and a lot of cultural, people that are involved in culture. Most of them are from the left. I would not be able to get any work if I did this, on my Instagram or TikTok page. I just wouldn't, or maybe I would. Maybe I would find my own route. But it's just not, it's like a headache I don't want to have. I'd rather just, when I'm dealing with music, I'm dealing with music. This is different. So that's one of the reasons why I do come off attacking the left more, because they're really nasty and they do personal attacks and they make you feel small. And especially, my friend Bishop, he kind of mentioned that in that post. Yeah, but the right wing, they come for my wife because she's from the Candomblé. Da, da, da. I don't doubt it. I remember when I was anti-Dilma down here and I was going to all the protests, there was this conservative, kind of pseudo-libertarian group that called me up on one of the trucks and asked me to do a speech, and I felt used. Like, I didn't, at the moment I did it, but after it was done, I was like, yeah, they were just kind of using me as like, oh, look, it's a black gay dude that's a conservative. And I'm like, one, I'm not a conservative, and two, I'm not a token. I'm not like your, like poster boy to show, look, the conservatives do like gays and blacks. That's not what I'm here for. But the difference is when, these guys that, because I joined some groups, I got into some stuff, when they realized, hey, I'm not really a conservative, and hey, I just told Bolsonaro to go fuck off, right? Then the most that would happen is like, they call you a commie, call you maybe a name. I had one racist name called me, actually a friend of Eddie's, and I think he defended me on that moment, which I thought was really cool. But for the most part, the right is just like, oh, he's not one of ours, let him go fuck himself, idiot, boom. The left, they come after you, man. They remember shit from like 10 years ago. It's like, yeah, I remember when you were kind of not so anti-Bolsonaro, and I wasn't. Until I realized, because there's one thing, the message, when you're running for president, another thing, what do you do when you're president, right? And they'll bring that shit up. They'll be like, and they will make you feel like you don't belong, and there's something wrong with you because you're black, you're gay, you're working class, you come from an immigrant family. How are you not a Democrat? How are you not a progressive? Because I'm not, because I got a brain. How about that? Because I'm an individual who looks at things and decides whether those things seem fishy or not. It's that simple, right? It doesn't take a genius to figure that out, but that's in the front. That's in the front to the left, right? That's why you got your Stephen A. Smiths who are like, yeah, you guys are creating this. You guys are creating Trump. And I told Ms. He this in a message before I block her. It's people like you that allow people like Trump to be in power that you hate so much. Right? So check yourself. Now, I was going to go down a list of like issues and just tell you like, look, just to prove that I'm not this or that, but I'm like, whatever. If you still believe that I work in binary terms, then, what can I do? Oh, speaking, look at that cute picture a student of mine drew of me. Really cute. Little girl did that. Yeah, if you still believe that, and if you still don't get where I'm coming from, that's a you problem. It's not a me problem. I know where I'm coming from. I enjoy the conversations with people that know where I'm coming from. I learn from these conversations, whether it's with people that are more on the right or more on the left. I love it, And at the end of the day, it's back to the beginning of this video. It's us versus them. Okay, it's us versus them. Join forces, y'all. Stop allowing the media to manipulate you, because you're being manipulated on both sides. You were manipulated during the Charlie Kirk assassination when the first news came out that, it was a trans, it was this. And, if you believe that one guy shot her, that's a whole other issue. But you saw right away, trans, leftist, da-da-da. This is to create division, right? To create division. And then the left, the progressives didn't help by cheering that the guy was dead. Because why? You're already brainwashed. Your soul has been sucked from your body if you're cheering when an innocent man gets shot live on TV or whatever you call it. Social media, TikTok, wherever the hell he appeared for kids to see. You're sick. You're 100% sick. Just like you're sick if you think it's okay for thousands of young children in Palestine to be massacred. You're sick, if that's okay with you. Like, I have no problem saying that, okay? And again, just because I said that doesn't mean that whatever was it, October 7th wasn't also disgusting. But read up on that and see if Israel didn't have something to do with that either. But that's a whole nother topic. I don't want to get too conspiratorial right now. And I want to end this right now. So I want to end by saying that if you still believe that I'm just gonna go binary, you're wrong. It's us versus them. So Charlie Kirk was one thing, and then the ICE stuff on the other side. The media is playing you. People that cheered when those two people were murdered, or not. Murdered is a strong word. Were killed by ICE, okay? Even Donald Trump was like, that's a tragedy. Even Donald Trump said that's a tragedy. So if your mentality is like, yeah, they gotta die, man, you're allowing these evil entities to suck your soul. That's a dead person, okay? Now, is that going to keep me from saying that they were really stupid doing what they did? It's like Darwin Awards, like I'm going to go out there and go fist to cuff with an armed federal agent and think that that's going to end well for me. Okay, you guys were dumb to do that, but it's still like a death of a human being. And that's kind of a tragedy. It's not kind of, it is a tragedy. It shouldn't be happening on the streets of America. But again, they're playing you. They're playing you. Okay, so wake up from this slumber and find people on the opposite side that you can agree with, at least on the level of like they understand that it's us versus them. You don't have to agree with every little tiny thing that they say, but if you can at least agree with whoever's up there in power does not have our best interest in mind, and if there is a World War III, they'll all have their bunkers and they'll all have their like underground seed houses, and they'll come out of the underground in 100 years and restart civilization while we're all dead. If you don't believe that, then you're just playing. You're playing the wrong game, and you're playing the wrong game with me. And that's it. I'm done. I just want to get that message out there. Love you guys. Thank you, Moses, for being online. Thank you, Eddie. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Mateus, man. I love you, Mateus. Thank you, Marcos, the real guy from real thorough guy. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Elida. I love you. I won't be able to see you when you come down to Brazil this year, but I hope to see you soon because I do miss you. And I'll try to do more of these guys because, I've been trying to find the right social media space to post things like this. That doesn't conflict too much with what I do in other social media spaces. And I guess Facebook is it. You guys open up a can of worms. Again, see, look, the same way the left created the monster, which is Trump, who's now in power, you have just created the monster, which is me, which is going to come on here and say what the fuck he thinks, probably on Fridays, and you might get your feelings hurt, all right? But that's your fault, not my fault. My feelings are not hurt. Bye.